The Battle of Stalingrad is one of the most famous battles of World War II, and it has been the subject of many games. Today we're going to talk about one of them, and the title is the Hell of Stalingrad, a card game, two-player game, published by Clash of Arms. It is a game that does not claim to be 100% accurate. In fact, the rulebook states at the beginning that the game mixes fact, fiction, and legend about Stalingrad. However, it does a good job in giving you a sense of the theme, of the despair and huge destruction that went on at Stalingrad. Something to be said about the rulebook to start with is that unfortunately it is one of the worst rulebooks I've ever seen in my entire life. It is completely disorganized. You have facts, information, rules, sub-rules, exceptions all thrown in without any apparent logic before the rulebook gives you a sense of what the setup is like and what a turn is like. You find that in the middle of the book. But even if you just start from the middle of the book, then that section takes for granted that you know what happened before. So it is still going to be confusing. I'm mentioning this because I almost never played this game because the rulebook was so frustrating after reading it twice. I had no idea what the game was like and I was going to give up. For whatever reason, I gave it a third try, things started making sense, I started playing the game, and I really liked it. So I just want to make sure you don't miss out on a good game just because the rulebook is so awful and discouraging. At the beginning of the game, the players will form a line of large cards in the middle of the table. The number of cards that they will use depends on whether they are playing the advanced game or the basic game. They will draw building cards representing different areas of the city of Stalingrad from that deck, and these are the area cards. And then they will attach to each of those area cards another card detailing some stats about that area. Also, each card has several pieces of information printed on it. The two most important ones are probably this number here, which tells you the maximum number of formations that can enter the area at the beginning of a turn, and this number here, which represents the defense of the area. The higher is the number, the easier the area is to defend for the Russian player, and the harder it is to take for the German player. Each turn, the players will attach some of their cards to each area representing the formations that are sending in that area to fight a battle. And in each turn, there will be a battle in each of these areas, and the battles will be resolved independently. If the Russian player wins the battle, then there's going to be a general slaughter in the area, but the area is going to stand. It is going to be there for next turn, and the German player will have to fight again in that area to try to take control of it. If the German player wins the battle, then he will draw a card from this deck, and if the card is a building, then the new building area card will replace the old one, and now the German army has to fight a battle there. These cards represent the areas that the army is just trying to advance through. What they're trying to do is to reach the Volga River and seal off a certain sector of the city. In fact, if the card that they draw after they win a battle is one of these battles, a Volga card, then you place it there, and it means that that area is now under control of the German army, and there will not be battles fought there anymore. You only fight in the remaining areas. Some of those areas of Stalingrad are called riverbank, and if the German player wins a battle there, then he doesn't have to draw a card. He can go through the deck and just reveal a Volga card and place it there. If at the end of the battle, at the end of the game, every area of Stalingrad has been replaced by Volga card, then it means that the German army completely took control of the city of Stalingrad and the German player is the winner. If one or more areas of Stalingrad are still standing at the end of the game, then the Russian player is the winner. The German formations are highly trained and specialized, and that means that each of them will be able to execute only some of the combat actions represented by the combat cards. Every combat card has a symbol here, and you will be able to attach that card only to units that have a matching symbol. For example, this is a card that can be attached to infantry units, so you could attach it to this unit here, and that means that that action can be executed in the battle, or for example could be attached to this other unit here that is a mixed unit, has both infantry and armored symbol. This other card has a tank there, so it could be played only on this card here, not here, so this formation could execute it, or again this other formation could. Also, you have another type of combat action, which is represented by this hat, and that means that this action can be executed only by units that have a general counter on them. You have a certain number of counters representing your leaders, and you can just distribute them among your formation. this case, for example, like this. So you can see these formations also have a number there, and that represents the number of cards that can be attached to them. For example, you can attach up to 3 tank cards to this unit. The Russian units work differently because they are completely generic. They only have a number there, which is their value in patriotism, and there is a similar value on the combat cards, on the actions that they can execute. Now, the thing here is that each combat card can be equipped to a unit as long as the total value of the cards that you are attaching does not exceed the total value of patriotism of the unit. So it's not about 1 card or 2 cards. In this case, for example, you could attach 4 cards, because in any case the total number is still not above the patriotism of the card. In this case, for example, you play this expensive card, more powerful card, that's it. That unit cannot do anything else. So you have, they're just more flexible, but however, very often the actions of the Russian formations are less powerful than those of the Germans. So you attach your formations to the 2 sides of the area, you use the formations to play combat cards. And what is the effect? Well, there are several effects, but the main one is to bring units from your army in the area where the battle is taking place. The units have 2 sides. One represents the attack side that tells you the action that the unit executes as it is entering the area. And they're all symbolized by these images, but you have a player that reminds you what they do. Once the action has been executed, the units are flipped to their defensive side, and they're actually placed on the card in the area. At this point, the most relevant piece of information is whether a unit is shielded or unshielded, because that tells you what type of enemy hits can target that unit. And then the player might do the same, probably will do the same, trying to bring in more units and to destroy some of yours. Each area of the city has a card such as this one associated to it, and there are several tracks that are used for several things. For example, there are some actions that the German player can take that will allow him to move the fire marker on the fire track, and once the fire marker reaches the Inferno area, then the counter is flipped, it becomes an Inferno counter and it stays there. I'll explain later what those Inferno counters are. Other actions will allow the Russian player to move the bucket on this other track, and of course when the bucket reaches the Inferno area, then that will allow the Russian player to remove an Inferno marker from there. Then there is a track up there, and to explain what that does, I need to introduce the Carnage cards to you. These cards are divided in 3 sections, and each section is used to determine the outcome of certain random events in the game. At the beginning of each battle, for example, the players will draw a card from this deck, and they will look at the central section of the card that will tell them which player is the initiative player, maybe the German player represented by the airplane, or the Russian player unflatteringly represented by a rat. And then they will look at this number, which will tell them the intensity of the battle, and then they will place this skull marker here on that number, on that track. Later during the turn, the players will have 3 choices every time they play. They can play a card using one of their formations in the way we explained before, they could reload their hand to get new cards, or they can play the hold action. If they choose an action, they will get another card from this deck, and this time they will look at the hold action section of the card. As you can see, many of these will allow them to move the bucket or the fire marker, but there are also other things that can be done during the hold action, but this is kind of random. However, very important, after they resolve the hold action, they will move the hold marker 1 box towards the end of the track. So once the players have taken enough hold actions to move the marker all the way there, then the battle that is being fought in the area is over, and they will start a procedure to determine who is the winner of the battle. When it is time to take the break test, like in this case, the players will receive a certain number of dice based on their performance during the battle. 1 die is awarded to the player with the highest number of units actually present in the battle area in the moment that the battle is over. In this case, for example, the Russian player has 5, the German player has 3, then the Russian player receives a die. Another die is awarded to the player with the highest number of full-strength formations present in the battle. And during the battle, actually, there are ways in which you attack the other player's formations, and when you do that, then you flip the formations that way to indicate that that formation is depleted. In this case, the German player has 3 full strength, the Russian player only has 2, then the German player earns another die. then the Russian player receives a number of dice equal to the defense of the area, so different areas will be harder or easier to defend, and then the German player receives a number of dice equal to the inferno markers that he managed to inflict to that area. So that's why the German player will try to set on fire as many buildings and areas as possible. At that point, the players will roll the dice that they earned during the battle, and the single highest number will determine the winner. You do not add them up. If one player has a 6 and the player has no 6s, then that player is the winner. There are several ways also of breaking ties, but this is the main idea. There are a couple of other things that players can do, but I just wanted to give you a general sense of how the game works. I like this game. It feels very thematic, very immersive. There's a lot of chrome. It really makes for a three-dimensional experience, I would say. I like how the two sides play differently, and I like in particular playing the Russian side, where you do have this sense of mounting threat. As you're seeing areas of the city falling under the control of the opponent one after the other, you know that that's going to happen. You know you're gonna send in a huge amount of units to certain destruction, and there is nothing you can do about it. It's all a matter of holding back your enemy for as long as possible. I like that. Maybe some players will not like the potentially repetitive nature of combat. After all, you fight one battle after the other, then you go back, you fight again, sometimes you fight the same very battle. However, I find that different areas of Stalingrad have different stats and require different strategies, and also in different moments of the game you will have different cards that will open or close certain opportunities. So I find that overall that is enough to keep the experience fresh and interesting to me throughout the entire game. An actual complaint that I heard from a friend of mine is that to him there was too much luck involved in the break test. He found that after playing a battle in which there was a lot of complexity and strategy, after all it all came down to one roll of dice, and fighting the entire battle to him meant having one more or one less die during that battle, but during that test. But by the way, to me, fighting to have one more or one less die is still worth it, but I see his point. I also see his point because this is not a game where you will roll dice hundreds of times and that in a certain way will even things out in the long run. You roll dice only a couple of times, and there will be games that you lose only because you failed all the break tests, even though it doesn't make any sense for that to happen, but there might be games that you win without deserving it for that very reason. So if you're a player that is absolutely 100% meritocratic, I played well, I deserve to win, I will accept nothing but victory, then this game might be frustrating from time to time to you. However, if you're looking for a game that feels very thematic, that gives you a strong experience of the theme, as accurate as that may be, a game that gives you a lot of options and things that you can do and combos that you can create. There is a lot of strategy, even though it might not always pay off. It is fun as you're executing it. Then I believe that you can have a lot of fun playing the Hell of Stalingrad.